Ladies and gentlemen, this is Scott Pollock, Chief Editor of the Critical Post Chicago, reporting. Welcome to another edition of the Goldwater Report. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for your indulgence. Here is Part 2B, which gets into the operations of the CIA and other things, to include clips from the Paul Collin, who has been helping with this, and an introduction into the voice and the talents of the point man for the White Hat Report. So stay tuned. This is going to take a little bit of while. So we'll be back with Part 2C after this. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for indulging this news desk in addressing those jerks. You know, when you put threats out on the web, you better know what you're threatening. You see, these men, they do that all the time. That's what they do. Now, if they decide that they're going to follow through with any of these threats, well, then that's fine. I'm not going to back away from their threats. But anyways, I got to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, this journey, we spent a couple of $1,000s on this investigation. And we don't know that the people that are stupid enough to listen to these men are going to benefit from hearing the rest of this report. But, as you can see from the last segment, their web rankings are going into the toilet. So, whether it's because of us or because people are just sick of them is anybody's guess. But, we know that the audience demographic for this, according to the web ranking engine, are a bunch of guys predominantly who are looking at these websites from their home, and they have some college education. Not a whole lot with a full college degree. Now, that doesn't qualify. A full college degree doesn't qualify anybody as being smart or not smart. Some people choose college, some don't. Some know how to live by their wits better, and so they don't go to college. But, their audience, I guess they have nothing to do with their time. Maybe these are the kind of people that are stuck home on disability. They have an internet addiction. They have a Facebook addiction. Whatever. But that's who's looking at this stuff at this point. Nobody who's got any brains in their head is following this. But that's neither here nor there at this point. All right. In this segment, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to deal with the information fraud. We're going to go to David Wilcock's website. I'm going to show you a couple things. We're not going to go through all of financial tyranny and show you that cheap production that the Russians use to propagandize their own people on Ren TV. I mean, if you saw the production value of that particular fiasco with the condescending announcer's voice, stay tuned, only in Russian. Get ready for the next part of this report. You won't believe your ears. All this stuff. I mean, I guess any publicity is good publicity, and David Wilcock being a publicity hound, he needed to make some money. So he sold his BS to the Russian government. Because I guarantee you, ladies and gentlemen, nothing falls on Russian TV that government doesn't approve. They've got a news platform in this country now called RT News, owned by Ria Novosti. This is Russian propaganda. They got a big studio in Washington, D.C., RT News. And they use it the same way that the State Department from the United States Government Corporation uses the Voice of America and Radio Free Europe. The Russians took a page from the Americans' playbook. RT News. People have walked off that. Reporters have walked off that platform. But Ren TV and David Wilcock's little excursion into becoming very popular in Russia, so he says, publishes this cheap production. Very low production value. Condescending announcer voice, all of this stuff. So he made a little bit of money on financial tyranny. The problem with financial tyranny, besides some of the history that actually is correct in some instances, was just a fluff piece. And Jean Haynes she was stupid enough to depend on the word of David Wilcock to base her assumptions, so that she jumped headlong into this CIA operation with both feet and gave up her retirement funds because she thought she had a deal. But before we get into that, before we get into David Wilcock's fantasy, ladies and gentlemen, I've played the clips before. You're going to hear more in the next part about, Keenan being a deal maker and all the deals and the fantastic numbers and all that stuff. I can't tell you how many times I listened to that. I got through the first disc, which is about 120 recordings. I didn't need to listen to anymore, because it was just a repeat and over and over and over and over and over again. And he kept on lying. And he kept on milking her and baiting her and making promises that he had no intention of keeping. Because you see, when you're working in this area and you're involved in a CIA operation and you're overseas, as a fraudster, you're allowed to keep your gains. If it's sanctioned by the United States government, they're not going to come after you. You got that? It was sanctioned. He knows he's not going to get prosecuted by the United States government. Unbelievable. But wait. Here is Ben Fulford in a Skype conversation that Keenan sent to Gene Haynes, I think somewhere around November, not November, somewhere around the 24th of September, very early in the morning, Gene's time, about a Skype conversation. He copied and pasted it into Gene's Skype between him and Ben Fulford. Okay? Then I'm going to show you something else that came in through the emails that was sent to Gene Haynes, which was sent to me, confirming what kind of piece of garbage this guy is. And his friend Martha Wabawa, a.k.a. Nelu. Here we are. Here's Ben Fulford having a conversation with him. And at one point in the conversation, he, yep, let me get that edit right. He starts telling Neil Keenan about this. Neil Keenan was debating him about, obviously Ben Fulford likes to bloviate and lie a little bit himself, or propagandize and stretch the truth himself. So Keenan in this exchange was schooling him on he better dial it back. Now this is a couple of years after Ben Fulford was interviewed the first time by David Wilcock. But he goes on, and right here, Keenan says he talks about that he has the royal families behind him. Now we're going to get into this whole royalty routine in just a bit. We're going to explain to you how this all works. And I have the royal families behind me as well, he goes on to say. Benjamin Fulford says, good. Neil Keenan says, now this is 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, almost, 2.5. We are where we should have been years ago. Years ago. What is he talking about? How long was this operation being cooked up? Fulford, we are all waiting to see the results. Keenan, well then you should not be taking information from people that just talk. Then he says, be careful. And also it sounds like I threatened you with jail if you did not come through me with the box. And here's the kicker. So Fulford comes back and says, I have access to hundreds and hundreds of Fed boxes via the Asian Secret Society. I will have them turned over to your name when you can pay for them at 0.0004 cents on the dollar to the owners. There it is. This conversation took place at the 24th of September 2013. Fulford's offering him boxes, Fed boxes, full of coupon-type bonds, I guess. And he wants to sell them to Keenan at 4/10 thousandths on the dollar. If they were any good, ladies and gentlemen, these boxes of bonds, or Federal Reserve note bonds, And God knows he doesn't stipulate the series in the year. What would he do? And they had to correct all of the copies necessary. What would they need Neil Keenan for? Why would Ben Fulford be offering Neil Keenan this stuff? Not that Keenan had the money. Isn't that interesting? Well, there's other things here. A little while ago, when I was listening, apparently there were a couple of bodyguards or some people from Italy that were with Keenan that Haynes was paying for. The residences or whatever case may be, I believe. We've got the receipts for that particular residence hotel. And he sent one of the guys home because, well, I guess he just lost his taste for him. Didn't like the guy anymore. Now, this is a guy that he'd been dealing with. The earliest emails that we have of this guy dealing with Keenan is 2008. Okay? So, thieves being what they are and having no honor among thieves, this guy flipped on Keenan and started sending Gene Haynes emails regarding his dealings with Neil Keenan. Remember in one of the previous videos, I said this guy was a junk dealer. Well, here's the evidence. On the date, July 11, 2008, says here, this is Neil Keenan to his prospective business partners. Paul Collin calls them joker brokers, guys like this. I might have the answer for our hazardous waste, my friends. Please read below and get back to me as soon as possible. Read below and get them to me, and if turkey is acceptable, and I don't mean the bird, ha, then we might be able to do business immediately. Check it out and let me know. On the same day, Dear Keenan, I haven't EU waste booklet at the moment, so would you please tell me the details of these wastes, codes one by one and such as how many tons they are, full analysis reports of them and which kind of manufactured waste they are for each of them. Also, what prices we can get is important. And he goes on, I mean, you know, this one from a guy by the name of Ishmael Sitki Kucik, or Kusik, K-U-C-U-K. Yeah. He was dealing junk. Here's another one a few days earlier. Buddy, do you remember what I told you some weeks ago? I have different wastes here. There are rubbish and industrial waste from petroleum works. Here are the codes. If you can find really one authorized area in Europe, I can give you this waste soon. Let me know, buddy. This particular thief was told to go home. He was no longer part of the party. He wasn't going to be allowed to stay in Jakarta. Right? There's you know, I don't know, about 10, 15 of these emails talking about rubbish, talking about scrap gold, talking about, let's see. Yeah, here's one about scrap gold. And, this is the kind of dealing he was doing. This is all in July of 2008. And that's where he got this guy. He was doing business with him, or the guy was trying to do business with him. Got all these emails. So he flipped on Keenan, and he spilled the beans. Now, Gene, at that particular point in time, was still enamored with Keenan. Still, basically had bought the whole story, hook, line, and sinker. So when this was sent to her, she didn't pay any attention to it. But it occurred to her after we started doing our investigation here that she would forward this stuff to me. Okay? And I'm not going to sit here and read all this stuff to you. All from, a lot of it from July. So finally, let's see here. Got to get to the end of all this. Finally, at the end, this guy sends this email. All right, here it is. Now, the guy's an Italian. And Keenan's going to say, yeah, this guy is this, and yeah, this guy was that, and ba. Right? The fact of the matter is, he flipped on him, and so now Keenan was in defense mode. So he went into offense on the guy and started publishing emails back and forth and telling the guy, with all of his usual bloviating and blustering, you don't know what you're talking about, and you're going to get in trouble, and you're going to be this, and you're going to be that. I watched the whole email trail. It was laughable and a joke. But here's what the guy said. Finally. And this came through to Gene Haynes on the 11th of March, 2013. Dear lady, you know who I am, and I certainly already been informed. But I was very hurt to discover a few years later that the story is invented and Keenan. I was deceived, has deceived my children. I'm not here to speak ill of Louis Ma. Read what I manadato, and I don't know what that means, which is still a small part of attempts to work we had together. And only one person will understand that she is funding. I'm not sure what he means by that, but he goes on. I discovered the scam with a person and with him in Jakarta, Tico, that makes him appear to be, but in the end, is a victim. Michael Dunn also tells lies on the blog. The South Korean who is there, and you'll recall me using a man's name by the name of Inchul, I-N-C-H-U-L. The South Korea who is there with him is a starving, is what he said. Neilu is a drug runner, and Neil wants to cheat money that Neilu gained with drug promising, with the drug promising them invest in PPP, which I'm not sure what that is. Some kind of trading platform, probably. You think that my ticket expired 15 days and I ran away last Friday? My friend Keith Scott had warned me and I did not have the herd. His English is terrible. I was wrong. I do not want anything, but I do know this because he is stealing a lot of money. He is a crook professional. Think about something you read in my email. Until a few years ago, trying to survive by trying to smuggle gold. Think about the cause, because the finances, you, dear Gene, and the Dragon family, what happened to the case? In the drawer. These were the spotlight on him. No one knows before this story he does not exist. However, I consider very intelligent, and I do not want to throw poison on him. I could not stop anymore. I greet you, and I remain at your disposal. So the guy in his broken English is trying to tell Gene Haynes that Nelu was a drug runner. This Martha Wabawa. And it basically was paid to go along with this whole scam. And we have evidence of exactly what went to his wife, how much money went to his wife when Keenan was milking her for her life savings. Right? That Nelu gained with the drug. The Korean who is there with them is a starving Nelu and a drug runner. And Neil wants to cheat money that Nelu gained with drug, promising them invest in PPP. Now, I can't verify those facts, ladies and gentlemen, but it's awfully darn curious that a junk dealer, God knows, I started with the word drunk, he probably is. His complexion shows that he likes alcohol. A junk dealer, somehow or another, got himself onto the world stage through David Wilcock and this PTSD Bailey when he was being propped up by Denise Rednauer, who paid for that darn radio interface, that piece of garbage blog talk. Cost her a pretty penny, too. But she's going to be on the radio soon. Again. Only I'm paying for it. Yeah, that's right, Bailey. Denise Rednauer is going to be on the radio. And part of our platform is going to tell jokes about you. That's part of the show. We've already got a number of one-liners for you. You'll be able to see that at nightwaveradio.net and nightwaveradio.com when we're on the air. And it's going to be soon. Have a couple of more things to work out with the interface? You bet. Let's get on with the rest of this, ladies and gentlemen. I wanted to get you out, understand. The guy is, whatever he is not a worldwide globe-trotting financier. Okay? All he is an asset of the CIA. And at this point in time, they have no use for him because they accomplished what they wanted to accomplish by using this man's profile on the World Wide Web. Okay? Here we go. What you're seeing on the screen now is the website as it exists today at David Wilcock's website, divinecosmos.com. And this is the website as it used to be. Okay? Same website as it used to be. And this particular iteration was on the, let's see, the 28th of December, 2011. So as you can see, it's been edited Okay? There's the same top, right? But then he had update, update, update. This is all his stuff. And here it is in the Wayback Machine, called the Internet Archive Wayback Machine. And he shows you the stuff that was taken at Chiasso. Okay? And we got information about that coming up in this segment. You're going to like to hear that. Okay? However, when he goes down into this whole thing and talks about the lawsuit and how well he knows these guys, he hangs. Now, this is a guy that went on coast to coast, and he used his insiders to verify who these guys were. So apparently his insiders, if David Wilcock knew he was part of a CIA operation, you got to ask yourself a question. Would he do what he did if he knew? So the contacts that he had, that supposedly he used to vet these guys, said, oh yeah, these guys are legit. So David Wilcock's own guys sheep dip him. And he went all on and made a little bit of money on the whole thing. But right on the first page of this lawsuit thing, after he advertises the lawsuit, he goes on and he talks about Keith Scott. And he says, under the heading, a staggering amount of information. I've been working solidly on this case every day for over 3 weeks now, which in my current life seems like an eternity given all the other balls I'm juggling at the same time. Yeah, right. The amount of information to assimilate and correlate and the complexity of fitting the pieces all together is staggering. I have now been in extensive contact with Neil Keenan, the principal plaintiff in this case, as well as Keith Scott, who is also mentioned in the complaint. Then he says, Scott is an expert in this utterly secretive world of trading between central banks and is well aware of the vast wealth underwriting them, all held in the strictest secrecy. I mean, the guy even left this on the web. It still says that in the other one. He didn't edit that out. Keenan has never worked for any government or clandestine agency, he goes on to say. He is a businessman who ultimately became acquainted with the Dragon family, the former ruling party of China, prior to the arrival of communism, and gained their trust. I have now personally surveyed over 300 photographs and dozens of separate documents Keenan sent me related to this case, including the now infamous Book of Maklumat, which is a book of codes. They are extremely complex and extremely compelling, he says. This all appeared after I conducted the interview with Fulford you are about to hear and read. The whole story is true. Devastatingly true. That's what he says on his website. So, the men we know are frauds. This guy is saying, oh, it's all true. Well, we got a lot of stuff to listen to here, ladies and gentlemen, and this is going to be I tried to put them in the best order I could. But I'm going to let you listen to them one by one. Okay? Let's see here. Now, the part of the synopsis I'm going to play you, I had a conversation with Paul a couple of days ago, and I want to synopsize, part of why this information is a fraud, because I went right to the heart of the matter. Here's Paul. I asked him a few questions. Listen to this. The Sarno Gold Trust Gambit has been used in some operations by the CIA since around 96.
That I was able to count. However, I had information in about 2002 that it had been used since 1984, and I know the names of the individuals involved in that.
All right, so the Sarno Gold Trust Gambit, as a semantical operation by the CIA, has been in use, to your earliest recollection, since 1984, and it has been used comfortably at least 10 or 12 times.
That is correct.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, this man says that he was the trustee of all this stuff. The Sarno Gold Trust Gambit, as just explained, has been used on numerous occasions, but we'll get more into the history of that in a second, because we've got another recording of that. Okay? So this stuff in David Wilcock's website, anything that's based on the Sarno Gold Trust and the Sarno family, what David Wilcock didn't know was this is a common gambit that the CIA's been using to ensnare the people that they're targeting. Understand? It's a tool of the trade, this information. Okay? Here's the next question. There are only so many people who are allowed to carry restricted access coupon type bonds.
That is correct.
You're not allowed to transport this stuff, ladies and gentlemen. It's against the law. Whether it's counterfeit or not. These are banking instruments for banks. And since the bank is in partnership with the government's got control of it. I'm not going to deal with the fascism aspect of this. I'm just telling you. Now, Paul Collin is an expert at this stuff. 40 years, over 40 years he's got. Trained by the intelligence community in this country. Worked with them. Continue to listen to this. And the counterfeit bonds are only at any particular point in time by any individual. Anything that's determined to be a counterfeit bond is illegal for anybody to be carrying, except people dispatched by the United States government, operations inside the United States government, CIA, DHS, whichever agency.
Secret Service. Yeah.
Secret Service. The only time that it's legal to carry these bonds, like
in the course of duty of their duty,
is in the course of an operation, and they know that they're counterfeits.
That's correct.
Okay. The Green Hilton Agreement does not exist.
It's not a legitimate. They're not legitimate documents. They're rife with. I've got 3 of them since 2003 or 2004, and I prepared a preliminary research report for one individual out of, I think it was Dusseldorf, Germany, or near Nuremberg, Germany, back in I believe it was 2003, and got another one and another one. There were three, total of three, and they're all phony baloney. I did the dissection of the report, the signatures, and the research, and the date, time of where certain individuals were that signed on that agreement. I did forensic work on the seals that were affixed to those documents or those pieces of paper. I did other forensic studies on the documents to prove that they were, in fact, absolutely counterfeit.
Right. And
so I am an expert on that particular set of documents. Absolutely.
And Neil Keenan's handler, or the person he was initially doing business with, was H. Edward Wales.
That is correct.
Okay. Now I'm going to get to this H. Edward Wales in just a second here. Okay? Neil Keenan used that lawsuit to puff up his profile. You understand? That lawsuit's no good. How are you going to sue the government for counterfeit bonds? He names a guy in the lawsuit, in the beginning of the lawsuit, a guy by the name of David Sales. Sounds a little bit like H. Edward Wales, doesn't it? As being one of the defendants. Now, I'm not looking at this lawsuit anymore. I'm not going to sit here and parse this lawsuit. Who cares? Okay? They dropped it. Okay? Ladies and gentlemen, understand that this whole big story on David Wilcock's website, Financial Tyranny, is a concoction, and all it did was help the CIA in this particular semantic operation. They had a little fair-haired boy here. Didn't know what he was doing. He said, boy, this is going to be great. This guy's got a lot of popularity. He's going to blow this puppy up for us. Let's give him all this stuff. And he drank it up. And then Ben Fulford gets on the phone. And Neil Keenan, he vetted these guys. And he bases everything on how well he vetted them. And he swears up and down that he did a good job. He did a terrible job. He had no idea what he was doing. Now here's how it really works, ladies and gentlemen. Here's how the story goes for an audience of investors. Okay? This is Paul Collin once again. And understand that what I'm doing here is I am playing you testimony from two different kinds of professional auditors with a combined experience of 80 years of this work. One whose specialty is being an auditor, an actual accountant, who's a private investigator, who's the point man for the White Hat report, and I won't use his name because I know he doesn't want me to. By the way, the White Hat report's back on the air. Go over to the White Hat report because they're going to start publishing again. And then Paul Collin, who had the website Unwanted Publicity, who has spent years and years and years on all of these forum posting websites. One of them was called the Diligenizer, where all these fraudsters sit there and swap spit with each other, to use Paul Collins' words, on the web and publish documents. And Paul Collins had all of these things on Unwanted Publicity. I'm going to let him tell you the story about all of that in just a couple of clips here. But listen to Paul tell you how a fraud is perpetrated when it's being missioned into operation. Listen to this. This is how the story goes for an audience of investors.
But the bottom line is, Keith Francis Scott drew up this cloud of all kinds of esoteric backgrounds of His Royal Highness Ray Chad Dam or His Excellency Ray Chad Dam, trying to throw the tinge of royalty, and then schooled Neil Francis Keenan on all the esoteric crap, which is where Neil Francis Scott all of a sudden started dumping shit into my emails about, first of all, he'd give me facts. Then he would go ahead and salt it toward the end of his conversation in his emails with this esoteric shit about, royalty and dynasties and all this other horse shit. So this, what Keith Francis Scott and Neil Francis Keenan do is they mix historical facts, such as what you may be speaking of with regard to that particular dynasty, with bullshit, and then they try to show a linkage. This is exactly what Wilcock's doing with his Edgar Casey bullshit and every other thing. What they do is these fraudsters mix history with fantasy, and then they come up with this wild story, and then they publish this shit and they put it out to audiences, and audiences are overwhelmed and say, oh shit, it's been verified through all these sources, and so it must be so. And it's not. It's all horse shit. But people won't buy the true facts because, number one, the true facts of this shit and the background of it is so complicated that you can't present it to a normal audience. So what these fraudsters have done is they've cut to the chase, mixed factual history, global history, and that means China and any other country's history, with bullshit, and then they say that they are the trustees of these global collateral accounts that President Kennedy signed with the former premier of Indonesia, Dr. Sukarno, the general, and that this passed then to Neil Keenan, and passed to the Dragon family, and the Dragon family's trustee is Neil Keenan, and he's the new M1 and all this. And it is such a convoluted bunch of garbage.
Yeah.
All it is it is the pitch that the audience as dogs are running after, sniffing, thinking that that bullshit's going to lead them to food. And all it is when they get to it is going to be a pile of shit, just like a dog, and they're going to go, oh fuck. And then they're going to turn around, but that's after the investor dollars have gone. And investors are these people that donate based on treasure hunters like fucking Scott, Keenan, and the rest of them.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that's how the propaganda works. So whether David Wilcock knew it or not, he was helping Keith Francis Scott game Neil Keenan. In a manner of speaking, the testimony of these two men has helped tear this apart. And they're the ones that schooled me. Now, we left off the last time with talking about Keith Francis Scott. Okay. Now, Neil Keenan, had a parting of the ways with Keith Francis Scott. I don't know exactly what happened there. I really don't care what happened there. Okay. But apparently Keenan didn't like his personality or something, or Keith Scott lied to him. Well, Keith Scott's a fraud himself. So they got one fraud dealing with another fraud. Let's pick it up where Paul's talking about Keith Francis Scott. Here. Well, what kind of idiot is this Wilcock? I mean, he is a major source of confusion.
Well, he trusts, and he says so many times on that one particular page how he trusts Neil Keenan.
Yeah, right.
So,
I don't. I think this guy is a total idiot.
Well, what's interesting
the
more
whole
than
time,
anything
the
of that
whole
article, what's interesting more than anything out of David Wilcock's article that I addressed in the report I sent to you, Scott, is the fact that David Wilcock admits to having been sent photographs of the bonds and gold bars and treasury boxes and stacks of cash out of the bunkers. Okay, we're talking about bunkers back in 2011, or excuse me, 2012, when David Wilcock first released that report on his website, and about the Russia TV going to boost his financial tyranny book in the background about that. The funny thing about that particular article is that in the entire content, David Wilcock says, back in the 2012 archive file, that he was getting photos from Keith Francis Scott. So we've got Neil Francis Keenan shooting stuff to Keith Francis Scott, or vice versa, coming to David Wilcock. So now we've got Keith Francis Scott communicating with David Wilcock and Benjamin Fulford and Neil Francis Keenan. So we got all three, including a little bit later on, not much later on, Michael Henry Dunn. All those people communicating with each other, Michael Henry Dunn being the communications director for the Keenan Group, according to LinkedIn and what Michael Henry Dunn had sent me. So, and then David Wilcock is stating that Keith Francis Scott was sending him data. Well, what the heck was David Wilcock putting crap up on the internet for, on the DivineCosmos.com site, coming from Keith Francis Scott? He obviously did not do the research like Keith Francis Scott and the frauds that he had been committing for almost a decade previously. I'm not talking one, I'm talking several major international frauds.
Right. So
we're talking about trying to defraud the Fiji, Fiji version of the Federal Reserve.
Right.
I mean,
so what we're talking about is a man who says he does his research, that doesn't do his research, and then runs with a ball that he has no business picking up.
Yeah. Well, one thing's for sure. This is Neil Francis Keenan's line or storyline, and David Wilcock's storyline with regard to the financial tyranny book and his RT Russian television news 3-hour broadcast going into the background, supposedly, of the United States Federal Reserve Bank and bank system, is all based on crap that came out of the mouth of a fraudster named Keith Francis Scott.
It's right there on the first page. I mean, if you're interested in a history lesson about certain things, I suppose that you could go through the Financial Tyranny website, but anything that hasn't been recorded correctly, do you really think that you can trust David Wilcock for the backstory? How would David Wilcock get the backstory on any of this? He's being fed like a baby in a high chair, spoon-fed by these three fraudsters. Ben Fulford, Neil Keenan, and Keith Scott. Keith Scott, no question. Paul's guy, I saw the files on this guy. This guy goes back a decade or so with all the things he's done. There'll be more information about that. You see, because what happens is they sanction this stuff. They mission it. And they say to the fraudsters who are out there acting like a non-official cover, they say, whatever you keep, whatever you can get off of people in the process of this, don't worry about it. We're not coming after you for it. You can keep whatever you can steal. That's sanctioned by the United States government and the CIA. That's a fact. That's part of semantical operation. You understand? That's how they get paid. But here's more.
We have this one connection. We have the U.S. government being complicit in this stuff with Keith Francis Scott from Jump Street that let him get by with it. He
Right.
and Ray Chad Dam, and then we got Ray Chad Dam involved with the CIA.
Right.
So this is all a concerted effort by the U.S. government to make audiences around the world, from Russia to throughout the United States, all go down the trail leading toward nothing more than a lump of feces laid somewhere. And people are still looking for it. And it's a shame that people are losing millions or hundreds of thousands of dollars based on this BS. And that's what really irritates me. And that is the crux to the matter.
Yeah.
And you can bring in, I was able to firsthand, through communications with Neil Francis Keenan, see that he was communicating and being introduced to similar people like Edward Wales, the trader of these phony instruments, back in 2010 or 2011, shortly after 2010, or 2009 for that matter, because Ed Wales was the one that gave him half the instruments, and the other half went to Daniel Del Bosco. And then we've got a federal court case out of Michigan identifying Ed Wales and a guy by the name of Paul K. Bryan as being involved with the CIA. And so, I mean, my God, this thing has U.S. government smeared all over it.
Okay? Now, Paul knows this stuff because he worked with these people. He was trained in this stuff in the armed forces. And later, as a private citizen, he became an expert forensic investigator on high-value legacy banking instruments because he was being hired by people to find out where their money went. First International Bank of Grenada. Neil Keenan takes credit. I forget where it was that he takes credit. I heard him say it in a conversation to Gene Haynes, as well as in an email. I don't have that up right now. Takes credit for putting Ray Chad Dam in jail. Neil Keenan takes credit for putting Ray Chad Dam in jail. How would Neil Keenan know anything about Ray Chad Dam? Did you know anything about Ray Chad Dam? Ladies and gentlemen, you never heard the name before. This is all just in the first chapter. All this stuff. The whole story falls down right there. Forget about some of the verifiable history. Okay? Is a fluff piece propping up Neil Keenan and Keith Francis Scott. And this lawsuit, which got a lot of publicity. Of course, it doesn't get any more publicity because it got thrown out of court. Here's more about Paul talking about David Wilcock, because there's other things in this report that Paul was beside himself when this all came out. because of his website, Unwanted Publicity. Here.
David Wilcock. David Wilcock comes out with this infamous long story or book called Financial Tyranny.
Yeah.
Okay? And I don't know whether it's the first page or the second page, but anybody that's done any kind of research with regard to this so-called global meltdown or financial economic meltdown that's gone around the world, anybody that's had anything to do insofar as research on the global collateral accounts or any of the legacy financial instruments, these high value bank instruments, anybody that has done any research anywhere knows that I've been doing this research for the longest time, more so than Neil Keenan, that just fell off the turnip truck a few years ago, and many other people that are in the
Right.
the spotlight. Okay.
What?
So anybody that's been around, and I'm talking government agents, I'm talking about people that we've mentioned and that are not government agents, they know what I know, basically. I mean, they know who the hell I am. They know that I don't mess around with counterfeit crap.
Right, Charlie.
David Wilcock comes out with this story called Financial Tyranny, and he makes, now I don't know who he got this from. I don't know whether it was the curiously honorable Benjamin Fulford or Neil Keenan or somebody else. But he makes this allegation in this book that a particular website was responsible, or points to this particular website was responsible for the death of a man by the name of Mackey, M-A-C-K-E-Y, him and his son. Now,
and when you go to that part of the story, he sits there and he refers to him as in an affectionate manner, calling him Huts, which I guess had something to do with the guy's online profile at a certain chat room or communication portal that all these guys were talking about him. He talks about him affectionately and Huts this and Huts that. We don't know if if David Wilcock knew him personally. He doesn't say that. I'm not looking at it right now, but he doesn't say that. Okay? So he makes him a chum, one of David Wilcock's chums in a story. Now, how well do you used to know somebody when you're online talking to somebody on Facebook you never met face to face? You think you know that person? Let's let Paul continue.
Because the guy went and viewed some of the documents on an internet website, these legacy financial instruments. All of a sudden, this guy was killed, and of course, they paint, primarily David Wilcock paints in this book, Financial Tyranny, that a website caused the death of a man just by looking at it. Okay, now I don't know whether the same agents that told me to take down information off my website regarding one of their operatives told them to write that so as to get people not to go to my website or what. I don't know what the purpose of him stating that was. I guess I kind of identified myself now. So that really got my goat, so to speak, and I was wondering, why didn't this popcorn fart, David Wilcock, bother to send me an email, or Keenan, or Fulford, or any of these guys, to ask me about my website? Okay? I'm just going to put it out there. The website's name is Unwanted Publicity Intelligence. Okay? It's a defunct website now. And it was heralded as being one of the only websites on the internet that had hundreds of these documents on display, and players involved, and the histories and the backgrounds of the crooks, and the history and the background of the genuine things, the genuine items mentioned about the historical assets, and the gold from Germany and Japan and Poland and Czechoslovakia and numerous other things, including the Office of International Treasury Control, and including a man by the name of Neil Benjamin Gibson, who was an agent, a Stone International fraudster, involved with these legacy asset instruments, bank instruments.
Well, wait a minute, Charlie. Yeah. So what you're telling me is David Wilcock was getting a lot of the information for this financial tyranny book from second-party websites and recomposing the information.
He writes a story, an article that he had so many parts to, he decided to turn it into a book. And the title of this book now, it started out as the article name, was Financial Tyranny. In the beginning of that particular book or article, couldn't have been a page or two, he throws this mysterious, this guy's death, him and his son, and I think we're talking about a 10-year-old or something like that, the son, as having died as a result of looking at my website. The things that I had on this website were dangerous and foreboding, basically, so top secret that if anybody looked at it, things had happened to them. I'd like to bitch slap David Wilcock when I see him.
Now, let me ask you a question.
That guy never even contacted me, never talked to me, and he lays allegations about a website that having been responsible for the death of a man and his son. I've got a bone to pick with him.
Yeah. Now, what happened? What happened to the website, Charlie? It got taken down. You couldn't afford it any longer.
It got taken down along with 4 of my other websites shortly before November 15th, 2012. All
right, go ahead.
So anyway, the government first in 2011 tells me to take down information off my website or they'll shut me down. And it's a long story.
Yeah,
but the bottom line is, what business does David Wilcock have stating that these documents are that dangerous that people die over them if they look at them? I mean, do people actually believe this? I mean, this is absolutely insane. And people bought his book online. I mean, can you imagine? This guy's making money off of fairy tales. Ridiculous, absolute. Anyway,
based on the information from your website, is that correct?
Yeah.
Your website wasn't fairy tales.
No, it wasn't.
But he was making up information as a result of your website.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I mean, the guy didn't even have the common courtesy to contact the author of the website. He knew how to get a hold of me. Keenan had been talking to me for years.
Wait a minute. David Wilcock knew how to get a hold of you?
Well, sure he did. Wasn't he in bed with Benjamin Fulford and Neil Keenan? I mean, my God, I was in communication with Neil Keenan.
Go ahead.
So, I find it real odd that somebody just go out there and start making money and throw out an allegation about the Unwanted Publicity Intelligence website and state that the information that was on that was so volatile and so dangerous that a man and his son were killed over looking at it.
Do you know if the man and the son were even killed?
I don't know.
Right.
He's sure alleging it. He's got a picture of the guy and his son.
Now, on the website, David Wilcock cites a story in a paper that said that the police ruled it a suicide. Now, you know, here he brings in the conspiracy part of the story. See, because if you don't believe the conspiracy, there's no way you can buy this. Ladies and gentlemen, do people lie? I mean, let's talk about a conspiracy. What else is new? Governments lie. Government corporations lie. Lawyers lie. Accountants lie. A lot of people lie. A lot of people get involved with each other regarding lies. Are you so paranoid? Are you so dead set on believing that gosh darn garbage that you're taking in on the screen, yet you can't tell the difference? David Wilcock, Gene Haynes was stupid enough, and a lot of people were stupid enough. We dropped this months before anybody else got wind of it. And we watched it for about a month, 2 months after we heard it on George Norrie's show. We said, are you kidding? Big deal. These guys, who the heck did these guys? And all you had to do was listen to this Drake Bailey guy, you know, I don't know, a few hours of him, PTSD Bailey, and we were done with it. There's nothing here. Come to find out, after we do this report, Paul comes running to the forefront saying, let me explain something to you, Scott. This is how this stuff works. And he took me to school. I've got hours and hours and hours of conversations with this man. This man is who he says he is. He has the training he says he has. He has done the work he says he's done. And I independently verified that. We have the connections for that. So, you know, this whole financial tyranny story, based just on the first 3 or 4 pages, he conflates this big lie and then drops the lawsuit in there, which was a fluff lawsuit, a frivolous lawsuit, ruled frivolous, thrown out of court. Where's the, you know, how come they didn't launch that lawsuit again? Well, you're going to hear the backstory on that now. Okay? Because Paul's got it. Understand? Listen to this.
They're what they call master traders, i.e. master fraudsters.
Paul's about to get into who is H. Edward Wales. Okay? And who he is to Neil Keenan. Neil Keenan never talked about H. Edward Wales. So this is a new piece of information for you. Listen to this. And of course, when you hear it, Keenan, you're going to sit there and you're going to deny everything. Don't you believe a word this man says, ladies and gentlemen?
So they pick up
Neil Keenan
like the dumb shit he is. They run the game past him, but they...
Let's start this again. Don't you believe a word that Neil Keenan says. Here.
They're what they call master traders, i.e. master fraudsters. So they pick up Keenan like the dumb shit he is. They run the game past him, but they send in Scott early on to school Keenan on how he can make some money. Yeah. So it's the big fish preying on the little fish. The big fraudsters playing on the little one.
So Keith Scott Keith Scott set him up.
Keith Scott said
set him up.
Set him up with Ed Wales. Yeah.
Yeah, he set him up.
Howard. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And that's what they do. They have the bigger fraudsters. They call them master traders, right? Because that's the go-to guy to get the bonds. So Scott tells Keenan, hey, here's where you get the bonds. Here's how you do this. Here's how you get your upfront advance fees and this and that. And I'll put you in touch with Ed Wales. Okay?
Yeah.
And I've got Keenan flat out covering Keith Scott's ass by stating that his wife introduced him to Ed Wales. And his wife introduced him to Del Bosco at the International Hotel. So that means his wife was in on it as well, because she performed the introductions, albeit whether or not she was there or not, which I think she was. You know, she's a former Duma deputy out of Bulgaria, a lawyer now, was a lawyer last time I checked a long time ago. But yeah, this is an interesting scam. It's just we're able to look at it a lot closer with Keith Scott, Neil Keenan, and Ed Wales. Del Bosco was neither here nor there. Neil Keenan came up with the idea, I'll go ahead and sue to get the other 50% of the bonds from Del Bosco and claim that Del Bosco stole the other 50% of the bonds. And that's what the $1 trillion lawsuit was about, that fucking Wilcock never heard about, and nor did Michael Henry Dunn hear about. They only passed on the BS from Keenan. And that's how Wilcock got duped. Okay? And yeah. I would imagine that that's how Mulligan got duped as well, the attorney, William Mulligan. So it would be interesting who paid Mulligan.
I couldn't help but laugh after I listened to this. Okay, here's more about that. Here's Paul talking more about the, and this figures in because we're talking about Bulgaria now when he was still in Bulgaria. Okay, here's more of that.
And, it could be a guy that was involved with Daniel Del Bosco. Or it could have been a guy that was involved with Howard Edward Wales, Ed Wales, with Island Trading. The trader that was involved with the CIA. These guys run. You have to ask yourself, and I had to ask myself a question: what the heck was Neil Francis Keenan doing in Bulgaria, other than being married to a former Duma deputy, now lawyer, and the lawyer having an assassination attempt on her shortly after the Chiasso bond incident. The assassination attempt on his wife was in 2010. And what was his wife doing, introducing him to Ed Wales, Daniel Del Bosco, and other people at the International Hotel in either Geneva or Zurich? How does this fit in? What was Keenan working on for the U.S. government prior, while he was in Bulgaria? And why was the secret police, one of his bodyguards when he was in Bulgaria? And one of those secret police bodyguards is in the photo behind Yamaguchi and Watanabe and Heath. So, right. And a brother of his, were these guys Italians operating in Bulgaria? Is this part of a an international spy network. What was Keenan doing over in Bulgaria, and why did he leave Bulgaria, and why is he in Indonesia? I think it has to do with some. I don't know if you're familiar with this or not, but there is a heavy Turkish presence in Bulgarian business, especially in the banking business in Bulgaria. Okay. One of whom, Neil Francis Keenan, is keenly familiar with, operating out of a Bulgarian bank. His Turkish connection through the banking industry. I have documents. I have actual photos from a contact, along with a Turkish passport, to a gentleman that has boxes of these Treaty of Versailles, or TOV, high legacy financial instruments that are Federal Reserve note coupon type bonds. Was that what was going on? And why was Alessandro Santi? There's another Italian gentleman tied in with these asset instruments. And the priors that Santi was involved in these similar type legacy asset instruments. We're not talking about Indonesian Sarno phony UBS certificates. What we're talking about are Federal Reserve notes. I have pictures of these treasure chests of that say Federal Reserve note from a gentleman in Turkey. Reams of photos from him that you'll see one or two pictures of on David Wilcock's site. Okay?
Yeah.
So, I can rock and roll with photos, but I find it interesting that photos linked to an intelligence operation that I was involved with on the periphery back in 2004 when I was in Eastern Europe wound up on David Wilcock's site. And what he did was he took the big picture, whoever sent him the photo took the big picture, shrunk it down, and says, here's 5 Federal Reserve note boxes. And of course, I have sent you the actual photo that.
If you go back to either preface to part 2, the second one or third preface, one of the prefaces, we show you the photos on that, so you'll have to go back and look. I forget which one it is.
It had not been photoshopped.
The
actual
doctored
photo
photos
from the South African intelligence agents that I got back in 2004.
Yeah.
So you can see a lot of doctoring and altering the photos, and then they wind up on Wilcock's site, and Wilcock says one thing, and that has nothing to do with Keenan, has nothing to do with gold or cash in the bunkers at all. Now this has to do with Joshua Adi, Admanto Adi, that was in communication with General Sarno long after President, the first president. General Sarno was the second president, but long after General Sukarno had passed away. So you've got Joshua Admanti Adhi, A-D-H-I, now in communication with Neil Francis Keenan. Okay, well, the bottom line is Joshua was made a person of interest after I vetted him for the Department of Homeland Security, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, Office of Special Investigations for the Federal Reserve back in 2010, 2011. But now all of a sudden I see Keenan working with him, and of course Keenan's not saying anything about that. Well, I find it interesting the information I'm feeding to DHS for Secret Service Foreign Branch, which is CIA. All of a sudden now Neil Francis Keenan is in touch with the bad guys. So I think what they did was DHS used me to get the intelligence data and vet it for them, and then they fed it to Keenan and had Keenan working the case over there. And the bottom line is the U.S. government is only interested in the terrorist connections with the Islamic and Muslim people in Southeast Asia, specifically in Java, where we had the bombing of the hotel in Bali. And that's all that is, you know. So I think Keenan has moved on from that and is into something else now. Whether he is or not, I don't know.
Paul's explaining to you how the semantics work. I mean, he's got the facts in emails documented. When I was in California talking with Paul, he showed me more stuff. It was boggling. He showed me a lot of stuff. I saw the dates. I saw the real emails. Paul doesn't lie. He doesn't make any money from this. So Keenan is actually a United States government asset. And a lot of stuff happened as a result of this. We told you in one of these part of this series about Gene Valentine, what happened there, right? Offering Paul all kinds of favors and stuff like that. Gene Valentine, who was, gave Paul a phone that had PTSD Bailey's phone number on it, along with a whole mess of other people. And Valentine told Paul, "We got to get rid of a lot of bad high brass in the Pentagon." Next thing you know, over the next couple of years, all this brass got fired. Air Force, Army, Navy, nobody was spared. 200, 300 high-ranking armed forces careermen got let go. Okay? But there's more to this operation. Okay? You don't think that the CIA and the intelligence agency go after just one objective. When you tell a lie, and if you watch even a series like Homeland can be on Showtime networks can be somewhat informative, because see, the way a CIA operation works is you tell a lie because you're trying to get down here to an objective, and if somewhere along the line something changes in the theater of battle and you need to pivot, you start to tell another lie and work that angle. And it goes on and on and on. And that is a semantic. That's how it works. And you compound lie after lie after lie. Now you got Keenan out there saying he's going to Greece with the Book of Codes. He's going to free Greece now. What happened to those boxes of gold? What happened to all that stuff? Well, you people that follow him over at Cosmic Voice and follow his blog, you don't have a memory? Okay? The real operation for this whole thing, okay? And we've got an email, Paul's got an email from Keenan talking about how great Alessandro Santi was and how wonderful this guy was. Like they were old buddies, right? Listen to this.
Well, it's to get them to cooperate. $135 billion that went across the Chiasso, Italy, Swiss border, or tried to go, that Keenan had put in motion. Keenan and a few other individuals sent the two Japanese businessmen there with false bottom in their attaché cases or suitcases.
Keenan put it in motion. There's more about the Chiasso border, but listen to this. Take it back again.
Well, it's to get them to cooperate. $135 billion that went across the Chiasso, Italy, Swiss border,
counterfeit,
or tried to go, that Keenan had put in motion.
Keenan and a few other individuals sent the 2 Japanese businessmen there with false bottom in their attaché cases or suitcases, stuffed with the documents, stuffed with the $135 billion in U.S. Federal Reserve notes, and coupon bonds. The U.S. government was after an Italian gentleman. They weren't after those Japanese men that were carrying it. They wanted that Italian gentleman, and they did. They got him arrested. And that was the purpose of the sting. And that is the way it is. So, and the reason why they went after that Italian gentleman, he owns a restaurant and bar in the Philippines. That is an international meeting ground for all the no-goodniks. I mean, the people in the underworld. They all like to meet there. People fly in from all over the world, and they wanted to bug his restaurant and bar. And he told them to go. He basically told the CIA to go take a flying leap at the moon. And they went after him, hammer, tooth, and nail, and they got him.
Right.
The whole Chiasso Bond incident was to bust Alessandro Santi. Now, of course, if you're buddying up next to the guy, in order to protect your cover, you're going to say, oh, this guy was great. Oh, this guy was that. You're going to lie. And that's what Keenan did. He lied. But no, there's more. Because you see, in order for Keenan to make money while he was over there, he needed to do something. And he was getting schooled by Keith Francis Scott on how to do it. See? Or so he thought. Okay? Listen to this.
Let me tell you what the typical advanced fee scam is. They try to get people to put up $10 million. Okay.
Yeah.
And they get a percentage off the $10 million.
Now, when we play there's going to be another couple clips here. When we play that same statement from the point man from the White Hat report, he says it's 100 million. Paul here said it's 10 million, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, that's what they try to do. And then they try to get people to, we'll contact your friends so we can pool the investment and get it into a trading program. You know, because the trading program's 100 million to get in. That's the minimum to get into this big board and all this bullshit. And then what they do is they get a bunch of their friends, in other words, the victim, Mark, gets a bunch of his friends. That's where you'll see the doctors, the lawyers, and the Indian chiefs that have that kind of money. And it's not only been run on them, it's a scam that's been going on for a long time. I've got case history files on these. But yeah, you're looking at the real picture there.
Now, where did Keenan get those bonds from? He got them from H. Edward Wales. Okay? That's what Paul said. He got them from H. Edward Wales because that's what Keenan said in an email. And Paul knows the guy's a fraudster. Sanctioned by the United States government, along with Neil Benjamin Gibson and a whole mess of other guys. Okay? Here. Listen to this.
Exactly, and he was trying to say that he spent $100,000 just to go to Zurich to get the bonds from Ed. He didn't say get the bonds from Ed Wales, but he went to Zurich to the International Hotel where his wife did the introduction. And in an email to me, he tells me that was $100,000 that I wasted in Zurich or Geneva at that meeting. Well, I think what happened was Ed Wales is no dummy, and he got an upfront from Neil Keenan, and I think Neil Keenan's wife queried people out of Bulgaria at the bank, the Turkish bankers in the Bulgarian bank, and got the money, and that's why she fled Bulgaria to go to Indonesia to be with her husband. She's on the run too. Oh yeah, it's beautiful, but you know, you got to pony up the money. So here, 50% of the bonds goes to Del Bosco, who's I think what happened was Ed Wales brought Del Bosco with him, and he handed Del Bosco the 50% of the bond for safekeeping. So, and Ed Wales tells Keenan, you go ahead and try to work these, and then there's more where that came from. You know, you can get these other ones over here, because it doesn't cost $100,000 to go to fucking Zurich or Geneva from Bulgaria.
No, he was being scammed by those guys.
Yeah, and those guys are tied with CIA.
And those guys were schooling him and taking his money.
They're what they call master traders, i.e. master fraudsters. So they pick up Keenan like the dumb shit he is. They run the game past him, but they send in Scott early on to school Keenan on how he can make some money.
Okay. Now, did Keenan know that he was going to lose that money if he lost the money, which is part of the story? Or is it just a story? Right? Well, you're going to see, ladies and gentlemen, in the early part of this story, how much money Gene Haynes sent to Keenan's wife as a down payment. That's coming up in a little bit. Next chapter of this. We know how long it's taking. I told you it was going to take a long time to get through this stuff. Because the testimony of the man who tore this apart, you had to listen to. Now let's not forget, there was going to be a government takeover, a militia takeover of the government. Remember all that? There was going to be a global reset. Remember all that? The dollar was going to collapse. You remember all that? The dollar's flying high right now. I'm not going to show you the chart. Now, if you want to understand how it can do what it's doing right now, it's because of the system of credit that's in the world. We don't have time to go into all these nuances, right? So, let me refer you back to what Keenan was actually trying to do. Okay? I want you to remember this remark that we played. This is the idiot Thomas Williams asking Neil Keenan a question on the Monkeys with Microphones blog talk radio platform. Listen to this.
Yeah, going forward, is there like a trading platform or?
There's nobody going to put up a trading platform until everything's in place.
Yeah.
You know, on a trading platform, you need a bank. We got a bank when we've got the funds in place.
Right. Okay.
A trading platform. Here is the lead man or the point man for the White Hats report explaining to me when I first learned about this, and then I had gone to where he is to see the documents that he's got that prove beyond a shadow of a doubt how things are being done behind the scenes. They call it the off-ledger money. The off-ledger money that is in the system that people have no idea about, okay, is staggering. Trillions? It's not trillions, ladies and gentlemen. There is no number that you can just say as to the amount of credit that these central banking facilities have been sucking out of the population of the world and gaming with each other and creating balance sheets that you have no idea what they are. Here's the point man for the White Hats report.
Yeah, and see, there have been and will be literally thousands of guys just like Keenan doing just what he's doing, trying to get their paper into a program, trying to get somebody to accept their paper so they can get into a trading program. And once they get into a trading program, they're set for the rest of their life. And that's what these people, there's thousands of them out there, and there will be thousands in the future.
Okay. So there is the point man for the White Hat reports confirming what Paul Collins said. There's thousands of these guys out there trying to get in on the game and get some illicit gains, just like Keenan. Here's him explaining very succinctly what a trading platform is.
Right.
Anyways.
Right. So I had a lot of cases. I have had a lot of cases hired by investors to get their money back from, these fraudsters like Keenan. Now, I don't know if you've read the legal papers that he submitted in his complaint and that bogus lawsuit that he filed in New York City that he eventually dropped himself.
He doesn't have standing.
He's just a treasure hunter. And we went through all those papers, and he basically says in there, if you read it, it's over 100 pages. It's a lot of bullshit. But anyway, he says that he was trying to get those bonds to be used as collateral for a trading program. Now, if you're not familiar with the trading programs, I should get some information and send it to you, because this is their mechanism. When people say they print money, well, this is how they do it. This is the mechanism that does that. Okay.
I would very much like to look at that.
Okay. And the minimum on these programs is $100 million.
When you have a chance, can you send it to me? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but anyways, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll try to find a relevant, recognized source that's accurate, okay? Because these are a big secret. These started after World War II when all the Allied countries got together and Bretton Woods and tried to figure out, well, how are we going to rebuild Europe and all these bombed out places now, because we've now acquired all this fucking real estate, right? So they created the trading programs. Now, if you've read or you're familiar with the Confessions of an Economic Hitman, what's that guy's name? John Perkins wrote. He talks about the second half of that, which is the humanitarian projects that they do. Well, the first half of that are the trading programs, and that's how they raise the money for the humanitarian projects.
Now, I want you to remember that terminology, humanitarian projects. What's Keenan always talking about? Humanitarian projects. Humanitarian projects. How many times have you ever heard him say it?
Of course, the humanitarian projects, as Perkins indicated and related in his book, are all just bullshit. They're all made up stuff. Part of the money goes in to pay off the local dictators. Part of the money goes, and most of the money that they raise goes to contractors that are American who go in and do the project. And then eventually the country either defaults on the loan. Well, they default on the loan, so then they need to go back and either get a new loan, or it's the repo man comes in and repossesses it. And this is part of the methodology of basically, invading countries. Long and the short of it. But that's what Keenan was trying to do. Keenan was trying to take those bonds over to Europe, and he was trying to get someone to give him standing with those, so that they would use those as collateral to get into a trading program. Now, a trading program throws out numbers that are just ridiculous. Okay, I mean, and I'm talking about, well, I know we're covering a hell of a lot of ground here. I don't know if you saw.
Go right ahead.
Lord Did you see Lord James's speech that was done in February of 2012, where he got up and talked about Pure Heart and the $15 trillion wire transfers that were sent from the U.S. to Pure Heart in Europe?
All right, now you can see that on the web. Look it up. Okay? You can see that speech in the, I think it's the House of Commons or the House of Lords over in 2012. That's after these guys blew a note on the White Hat Report because they got a hold of the document for that particular trading program. And when I went to meet this man, he showed me that document. And ladies and gentlemen, it reads like the who's who of banking throughout the world. Every famous name you can possibly think of was in on that trading platform, in the name of a humanitarian project, which was only 2% of the trading platform. The other 93%, before they bring the bond onto the market and say it's funded, and so they'll pay for it, gets traded between the banks. One bank trades it to another bank, 1%, one bank trades it, then that bank trades that to another bank, he picks up a 0.5%. Another one. And they keep on picking up percentages off of each other until 95% of that bond, part of that trading platform, is funded, and they bring it on for the remaining 5% and sell it as a medium-term note. Keenan was trying to get in on the gravy train. See? That's what's going on here. But what qualifies this guy, right? And I saw that paper. And I'm positive that this man isn't trying to game me. What has he got to gain from lying to me? That's the first question you got to answer. Second question you got to ask is, how good is this desk at verifying that somebody is who they say they are? And whether I know what I'm doing. Here he's talking about his typical customer.
What I want to say, and I told Paul this, she is a typical client that I have, okay? She is the typical person that would come to me and say, "Can you get my money back for me?"
Yeah, right.
Okay. These are the kinds of clients that I have. Anybody that's smart knows that if you go to the authorities, all they're going to do is go arrest them and confiscate your money, and you will never see it again. Right. If you go to court and try to sue them, well, forget that. That's never going to happen. You're never going to get any satisfaction out of that.
No.
So, therefore, when I do it, we usually go in and have a chat with them and say, okay, we know this, and this about you. And if you don't give it up and get the money, give us the money back, then we're going to cause all kinds of trouble for you.
Now, that's what the man does. He's been doing it for decades now. That's what he does. Because people are being victimized all over the place because of these operations. And the CIA doesn't care. They don't care who gets involved. They're missioning something. They've got objectives. And the objectives keep on changing. That's the semantic. Because conditions in the battlefield change. And there's a financial war going on right now. Now we can get into this stuff with, and they talk about all in the ignorant terms, the cabal. Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't like the way your life is going now, with the money system that you're in, and the interview that we're going to do with Harmon L. Taylor is going to explain to you once and for all what you don't understand. That's coming up. You don't like this? Well, you can go live somewhere else, but guess what? Not going to be any better there. You have a World Federation of Money Supply. We're going to explain that to you and how it works and what you've consented to by using it. And you don't even realize that there's more to this. It's against the law to be in the wrong place at the wrong time with these pieces of paper. Here's Paul explaining that.
They've got a former U.S. Attorney General that got involved with these asset instruments and had a lawyer meet with CIA General Counsel in CIA headquarters, and he even wound up doing time getting involved in this stuff.
Who's that?
I have those documents in my files as well.
Who's that?
He's I can't name the name offhand, but a former U.S. Attorney General. He served about 2 years, 18 months to 2 years as U.S. Attorney General.
Oh, really?
And there's plenty there. Yeah, I've got the court case, the federal court case documents on his deal, and the pleadings from the attorney. My God, I sat down with General Counsel of CIA. CIA knew what we were doing, what we were trying to legitimatize. It's unbelievable. The secretive, incestuous arrangements made between the government and countries.
Okay. Now here's Paul explaining what a Keenan really is. And what David Wilcock didn't know he was dealing with.
Well, I've got the documents, the notarized documents, copies of their passports, and the photo of him standing next to these guys before they went
talking
across
about
the border.
Watanabe and Yamaguchi at the
I've
border.
got the scanned copies of the $135 billion in U.S. Federal Reserve notes, these coupon bonds, which the U.S. government says that Keenan is not a person of interest. So if he's not a person of interest, then they must have put him there in the first place. Wouldn't you say?
Okay, so that involves the semantics of how these operations are conducted. Is that a fair assessment?
It's the most value that Neil Keenan has for the U.S. government is he is a good information asset in place. He's an agent in place. He's over in Indonesia or wherever he's at now. I don't know. My understanding he's in Bali. And, on his treasure hunt.
This is dated material.
Seeing things in a bunker or seeing the valuable items and this and that. Okay, so what's the point? So the things are in a bunker. How is that going to provide any return to the individual investor that sent money to him? Now, did the individual investor send money to him to conduct this project? Did it assist him in conducting this project? Airfare, boat fare, living expenses? Probably did. I'm sure that he had to survive. And I'm sure that he used some of the money for that. I don't know where his money is. I'm not sitting there looking at his bank accounts. I don't know what he did with the money. I think the question is, if there was a return promised on an investment, where's the return, and how soon was that return to come, and in what form was the individual investor going to receive the return?
Right.
Or was the investor just financing a treasure hunt?
Right.
If the investor is financing a treasure hunt, that money's gone.
Now listen further.
Of any importance regarding anything but the fact that he is looking for gold to verify the Sukarno Trust. And he may have found that gold.
Now this is earlier.
Also
this is earlier when during the first conversations. Okay, so some of this is going back 4 months while I'm still trying to figure out what the heck I'm listening to. Okay? Listen to this.
That, based on your understanding of the semantics involved in the way that covert operations are conducted by the United States government for means of plausible deniability, that the United States government and handlers from the United States government came back to you and said, Mr. Keenan is not a person of interest.
That is correct.
And
knowing full well about the Chiasso incident and those particular documents that they later declared were counterfeit.
And then,
no.
Right. And then because of the semantics involved by being not a person of interest, you are asserting that that is what confirms to you, and the way you know the United States government works, that in fact that means that Mr. Keenan is an asset of the United States government through certain proxies like handlers.
That is correct. And that's my opinion based on my experience and based on legitimate government documents and legitimate correspondence from my handler, who is a federal agent for the U.S. government and still is with the Department of Homeland Security, Immigration Customs Enforcement, Office of Special Investigations, OSI.
Right. And
he's the guy running the redemption program and has been for a number of years. And I've got it in black and white. I've got it on Federal Reserve stationery.
I saw all this stuff.
I've got it in an email directly from the agent back to me about Neil. And that was after my agent consulted with other foreign U.S. agents and agencies overseas.
Right.
So you got to wonder. If he's not a person of interest, who is Neil Keenan?
Right. Right. So, at least...
Here's another time that Paul's explaining that. Let's listen to it a different way.
Really what Mr. Keenan is a treasure hunter, but at the same time, it's very likely that he is not only a treasure hunter for himself and whatever story he's conflating, but that based on the semantics involved, he's a
U.S. government information agent.
He's
a global information asset for the U.S. intelligence community, for God's sake.
Based on what you know about how this community works and the assets, and
I ought to know. I used to be a member.
Right, and you're injecting, and you're injecting that particular line of thinking into our inquiry about Mr. Keenan.
Based on 5 or 6 years of numerous exchanges of communications with Neil, yes, and my expertise, yes.
Now, not only that, but I'm looking for the recording right now. I can't find it, and I don't want to go for it. But believe me, ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you, the Chiasso border incident, Paul explained to me, is a favorite spot to conduct stings by the CIA and other secret government agencies from other countries. Chiasso is one of their favorite places. You got it? Alessandro Santi, the guy who got busted and put in jail, had a bar in the Philippines where all these guys hang out and they wanted him to cooperate, and he said no. So they went after him. All the while, Keenan's saying he's his buddy. You get it? So, if Keenan says no, it means yes. If Keenan says yes, it means no. You understand that, ladies and gentlemen? But don't take my word for it. Here's Neil Keenan talking to Gene Haynes on the 4th of April, 2013. Okay? About his buddies in the Pentagon. You ready?
If you wish, go ahead.
Okay, but before I do that, let me get some supper, and let me go back and clarify so that it feels...
Forget that. Hey, let me tell you.
Okay, now, I understand that she was talking to him about how she was going to run his propaganda for him, thinking that she was doing something for humanity. That's her whole big, her head was in the clouds. Okay? I'm going to take it back again so you can hear the trail end of that. Listen to this.
If you wish, go ahead.
Okay, but before I do that, let me get some supper, and let me go back and clarify so that it feels...
Forget that. Hey, let me tell you what's going on.
Okay.
I call you to tell you what's going on because it's...
Well, you did indicate it in an email, and then, in a Skype, which I'm looking at, and you told me I get on and blow because I could see you're a little bit getting tired of waiting.
By this time, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, according to the timeline, she's in over her head for well over $120,000, $130,000 in financial backing to this guy at this point in time in April of 2013. And we're going to have that roll call coming up in the next section. You understand? She's already in. The hook's in her mouth for about $130,000, $140,000 at this point, or more. I didn't take the accounting and I didn't run the timeline. But knowing how many receipts I've got that I'm going to show you, and knowing Gene's own accounting, that's the kind of money she was in for while she's talking to him about this stuff. And she thought she had a deal, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to show you the evidence for that. You don't give this man this kind of money if you don't think you have a deal. Listen to him.
They came to visit me yesterday, the Pentagon.
Excuse me. You want to listen to it? They came to visit me. The guys the other day from the Pentagon.
They came to visit me yesterday, the Pentagon, an agency actually, last night. And I left the building and I met with them, one guy. And he told me that they're waiting for me to get this complete so that they can get to work themselves, that everybody's waiting on me. And I told him, I said, if I had unlimited capital...
The guy in the Pentagon is waiting on him. The people at the Pentagon are waiting on him. I suppose those are the good guys, right? That's the cover story. We're going to take over the government from the inside and we're going to force these bad guys out. That's the cover story that David Wilcock told. Let's do it again.
You're a little bit getting tired of waiting.
They came to visit me yesterday, the Pentagon, an agency actually, last night. And I left the building and I met with them. One guy.
Shot.
And he told me that they're waiting for me to get this complete so that they can get to work themselves, that everybody's waiting on me. And I told him, I said, if I had unlimited capital, I said, we can move a lot quicker, but you people haven't done anything. I said, other than talk to me. And I said, the information that I've been getting from my people in the Pentagon, I said, has been highly helpful. I said, but the bottom line is, I just don't need talk. I need help financially here too. Mm-hmm. I said, and they haven't gone into their pocket, and they said they wouldn't. I told them, and from the beginning. I said, but if you keep thinking we can go into our pockets, you're wrong too, because you have a big deeper pockets than we do.
Mm-hmm.
Told them, I said, our pockets are pretty well bare, and we've got a little longer to stay here. I got a guy with bronchitis in the other room, insulin, in the process of getting his leg healed. He caught bronchitis because of the air conditioning.
Mm-hmm.
It's likely. I said, I got a guy sick. I got other people frustrated that it's taking so long. I should be able to get him out of the building. I said, and take him out somewhere and at least get the heads cleaned up so that they help rather than just run around like with a 1,000-pound head on the top of their shoulder.
Yeah, because it's nerve-wracking for most people.
Oh, it is. I can see it. And I told him, I said, we are running out. I told him, I said, we need financial help. And he said, I'm just a messenger, which he is, you know.
So tell him, take the message back.
No, I did, but nothing's going to happen. It doesn't matter.
At, and you tell me I
Let's
get
do it again.
Because I could see you're a little bit getting tired of waiting.
They came to visit me yesterday, the Pentagon, an agency actually, last night. And I left the building and I met with them, one guy. And he told me that they're waiting for me to get this complete so that they can get to work themselves, that everybody's waiting on me. And I told him, I said, you know,
getting tired of waiting.
They came to visit me yesterday, the Pentagon, an agency actually, last night. And I left the building and I met with them, one guy. And he told me that they're waiting for me to get this complete so that they can get to work themselves, that everybody's waiting on me. And I told him, I said, you know, I said, if I had unlimited capital, I said, we could move a lot quicker, but you people haven't done anything.
You heard enough? You don't like that, Keenan, huh? I got your greatest hits. I got a evidence wall sitting in front of me. I can't sit here and take up hours and hours and hours of time. How do you like that? Huh? You jerk. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the testimony you listened to from Paul Collin and the point man from the White Hat Report that I have vetted, who have assisted me in tearing apart this fish story, is the real deal. These men know what they're talking about. More than I'll ever know what I'm talking about. They schooled me. Now I'm going to come back with the evidence now about how much money Gene Haynes lost, let alone other people. Because there's dozens upon dozens of people. Few people called us up, got over their embarrassment. Few people called us up and said, yeah, we gave them a Bitcoin. Women, mainly. I'm not going to put that on the air. Anytime you want to call, Keenan, 312-544-0134. And you can bet I'm going to be recording it. Be warned. And that's what he said, ladies and gentlemen. The guys from the Pentagon, he told Gene. They were there to meet him. Funny thing. You know, just about the time that he came out of the so-called bunkers and he showed you all that gold. Well, the USS Fort Worth just happened to make an historic visit 3 months afterwards, made a historic visit after their search operation for the Asian jetliner. Happened to stop in Jakarta. Wonder why that happened. What did the USS Fort Worth have to do in Jakarta? They're a nuclear-powered ship. They don't need to stop in Jakarta. They could have gone to Singapore. They could have gone to the Philippines. There's all kinds of bases out there for the United States Navy. Why did they go to Jakarta? And how come you haven't seen the bunkers and the gold? Huh? You can look it up online. I'm not going to look for it right now. But I found that very curious. All right. Get ready for the next part. I'm going to line that up. And I'm going to do it. Taking a little bit longer than I want it to take. But ladies and gentlemen, you got to listen to this stuff in order for you to get it in your mind to not pay attention to these men. This is an intelligence operation that's at its end. That's all it is. And David Wilcock and all of the information that he used, he was an idiot. He didn't know what he was talking about. And he didn't know who he was talking to, and he doesn't know anything about semantical operations. Understand? I didn't know anything about semantical operations. But now I do. And now you do too. I'll be right back. Get ready for the bombshell, Keenan. You lying sack of garbage. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes part 2B of the expose. And there was more that we were going to do. We could show you all the fraudulent documents that Neil Keenan sent to Jean Haynes to entice her and get her on board. They're all counterfeit. Several of these documents. We'll be back with part 2C next day or so. Thanks for watching.